When you go through the news these days, it could be on YouTube, it could be something that pops up on Instagram, or it could be the good old traditional TV. Have you ever paused and wondered, where are we being led towards? Is it security, stability, predictability, or not? And I'm not talking about one specific country, one specific nation. This is a question that echoes across all societies, across the globe, especially in terms of economic uncertainty, in times of social unrest, change, especially technological change, AI and whatnot. What is it that makes people choose their leader? And that is the question. Is it wisdom? Is it strength? Or is it something that is far more emotional? Today, we are going to explore the answer to this very question. And we'll not do this through headlines, through debates, but we'll do this through an ancient fable. Simple on the surface, but quite powerful beneath it. Because more often than not, the oldest stories understand human nature much, much better than the loudest speeches of today. So what are we waiting for? Let's begin. Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. This is Stuti, that is YOLO, and you're watching
The Stuti Show. The tales say more than they seem.
Let me take you back exactly 2,500 years ago. Okay, not exactly, around 2,500 years ago. This time, we are going to be visiting ancient Greece. Now, in Greece, in that era, the Greek storytellers, they passed down small animal stories that were filled with wit, with irony, but they also carried a sharp moral lesson. Now, and over the years, these stories got attributed to a man called Aesop. In Aesop's fables, animals were never just animals. The forest was never just a forest. They all mirrored human behavior. So in Aesop's fables, you had lions who behaved like kings, you had donkeys who dreamt of glory, and then there were monkeys who could become rulers. And today's story is one such tale. There was once a forest that was ruled by an old but wise king, and this king was loved by everybody in the forest. Unfortunately, one day the lion died. And as soon as he died, there was chaos, confusion spread across the entire forest. The animals, they started getting nervous. Arguments started breaking out. The rabbits were arguing about the burrows. The deers were arguing about the grass patches. Now, as the tradition goes in the forest, all the animals decided they'll gather together in the clearing in the center of the forest. And once they were together, the elephant, who was the oldest in the lot, he said, who's going to be our king now? And that is when there was this bear who was standing. He shouted, me, because I'm the strongest. There was one stag who was standing close by. He said, no, me, I'm the swiftest. And then there was a voice that came from the treetops, the owl. He shouted, no, me, I'm the wisest. And just like that, arguments started getting heated up from all directions. And while this was going on, suddenly a monkey, a random monkey, he jumped into the center clearing and he shouted, what are we arguing about? Why are we fighting when we can celebrate? And before anybody could comprehend, before anybody could object, understand what's happening, the monkey, he leapt and he started dancing. He was twirling his tail, he somersaulted, he juggled the twigs, and then he stopped. He imitated the lion's roar. It was so dramatic that everybody burst out laughing. This was the first time the forest was laughing after the king had died. Now, after this entire show was over and silence resumed, the parrots from the treetops, they said that this monkey, he is special. He lifts our spirits. There was the deer who was standing nearby. He said, yes, he actually lifts our hearts. And just like that, one by one, everybody started nodding in agreement. And then, in an emotional moment, the entire forest decided to crown this monkey as the new king. There was an old wise fox who was standing behind the bushes. He watched all this from the shadows. First, everything was hunky-dory. Everything felt light and bright. The monkey held daily performances. He used to wave grandly from the treetops. But running a forest is not a circus. Unfortunately, there was a long dry spell that struck the forest. The rivers started shrinking, the grass yellowed, the animals were in panic. They decided they are going to go to the king. The animals, they gathered in front of the monkey and they said, "Your Majesty, we have to start rationing the water. We have to have organized distribution." The monkey listened to all this very carefully, very seriously. He stroked his chin and then he leapt onto a rock. And then he did what? He started dancing. He spun around, he clapped his hand, he chanted some syllables that made no sense. Everybody watched this. Everybody was amused. There were monkeys who were watching all this from the treetops. They started cheering. They said, "Your Majesty, he's performing the rain dance." Everybody was laughing. Everybody was giggling. But the sky still remained empty. There was no rain. The old wise fox, he continued to observe all this silently from the bushes. There was a pack of wolves that began circling the edge of the forest and they started attacking small animals. Now the deer trembled. They got nervous. They went to the monkey and they said, "Your Majesty, we need protection." Now the monkey listened. He stood up and he said, "Of course, a demonstration of power is needed." He said, "We'll put together a formation that is going to scare away the tallest and the mightiest." So what did he do? He gathered all the animals and he started choreographing. The squirrels, they were asked to shake all the branches aggressively. The birds were asked to flap their wings in synchronization. And the monkeys were asked to leap aggressively, bare their teeth. The wolves, they were watching all of this from a distance and they were amazed. One of them, he tilted his head and he said, "Are they performing? Dancing?" And that is when the entire pack of wolves burst out laughing. The next night, they once again attacked the forest, but this time they were much bolder and much more aggressive. The old wise fox, he was again watching all this, observing all the developments quietly from a distance. Now the forest resources, they started dwindling because of the drought. There was this patch of berry bushes that was consumed by the bears and the antelopes. And because of the dwindling resources, territorial arguments started between the two parties, who's going to get which part of the bushes. The dispute grew so heated that they decided they need to go to the king. The monkey listened to all of this. The antelopes, the bears, they demanded judgment. He said, "Of course, we are going to resolve this." And how? He said, "We are going to resolve this through interpretation." What did he do? He jumped into the center and he started enacting the entire argument between the bears and the antelopes. He mimicked like the bear. He started prancing and he started jumping like the antelope. Everybody started cheering and clapping and applauding. But once that entire performance ended, the berry bushes, they still remained contested. Now the fox, he narrowed his eyes and he watched all of this very carefully from behind the bushes. The fox had seen this now long enough. He decided that now the forest needed clarity. So one day he approached the monkey and he said, "Your Majesty, I have found a treasure that is worthy of a king, but it is hidden deep into the forest." Now the monkey's eyes glittered and without a second thought, no guards, no caution, no thought, he said, "Lead the way." And he started following the fox. Once they were deep into the forest, there was a clearing and he saw a shiny object hidden underneath the leaves. The monkey leapt forward and snap. There was a hunter's net that sprung him upwards and the king was trapped. He screeched, he thrashed, but nothing could really untie those ropes. That is when the fox, he approached the king and he said very calmly that Your Majesty, you who could not even see the trap that was lying right in front of your feet, how could you see the dangers that are lying in front of your kingdom? Then slowly and gradually the other animals of the forest, they started gathering. And when they saw the king, he was hanging helplessly. They of course freed him. But something changed. There was no laughter. Now sense started prevailing in the forest. And quietly the crown slipped away from the monkey's head. And thus ended the reign of the Monkey King. And this is how the story ends. At first, the monkey's reign felt joyful. He brought laughter in grief. But when droughts came, he danced. When danger came in the form of wolves, he performed. And when conflict rose for the berry bushes, he entertained. The clear moral here is that entertainment, charm, popularity is not wisdom, is not competence, and definitely is not leadership. But is it ever that simple? You make it sound as if the entire forest, all the animals, chose very foolishly. But were they really that foolish? Well, they did choose someone for their dancing and not their thinking. Or perhaps they chose someone because of the way he made them feel. Because remember the context. The entire forest was in grieving. The lion had just died. There was instability. There was uncertainty. And here comes along someone who makes them laugh. Psychologically, that's extremely powerful. So you are saying that the forest didn't choose badly. The forest chose emotionally. Yes. And that's not something that applies only to the forest. This is something that applies to the real world. Look around us. In times of crisis, people often gravitate towards leaders who speak very confidently, who offer very simple solutions, or who project a lot of strength. So the monkey wasn't really a bad ruler. He was just a projection of the forest's emotion. Exactly. Because leadership does not arise in isolation. Leadership arises in collective desire. And especially in times of uncertainty, people often select people who are more comforting rather than who are more capable. I get that and I understand. But when reality struck, when the droughts came, when the disputes over berry bushes escalated, when the danger of wolves was there, that time entertainment did not help. True. That is when the story becomes political. Because in times of uncertainty, the speeches are going to become louder, the gestures are going to be more dramatic. And what will people do? They will applaud. Because applause feels like participation. However, governance, true governance, that is something which is very slow. It's procedural. It requires compromise, negotiations. It requires patience. And that is very boring from the outside. And boredom rarely wins any applause. So we don't really choose competence, but we choose comfort. And when the fox sets the trap, that is when leadership gets tested. Yes, because sooner or later, reality will set a trap, either in the form of a crisis, a shortage, a conflict. And that is when the performance will not untangle the ropes. Only foresight is going to untangle, is going to make you go forward. So then what is Aesop really asking us? What is Aesop asking us is to really see how we measure our leaders. Do we measure them based on how they make us feel or how competent they are in making their decisions? Do we actually reward the loudest voice or the clearest thinker? So in today's geopolitical scene, we often see that the leaders, they make certain decisions that have ripple effects on the trade relationships shifting. You have conflicts that get escalated. You have different societies that get polarized. Sometimes that entire applause fades. But what stays back is reality, is consequences. And that is where this ancient fable becomes very powerful. The forest learned its lesson. The question is, will we? And that's the story for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this story. And do let me know in the comment section what are your thoughts. And till the time we meet next again, remember to like, to share, and to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Bye.